We are talking about menopause all day here today on Business of the V, and there is so much to talk about. There are new products, there are new symptoms, there's a new comfort level with talking about it. There are the implications for mental health. You know, for lots of people who are listening to this, that might be new, but you're doing this every day. What is different in the conversations you're having with your patients?
Well, actually, it's the conversation that's different. So this is no longer the Dr. Dweck, I have to tell you something. This is out there and it's being spoken about, you know, with megaphones. So there are many communities speaking about menopause. There are telehealth practices focusing only on menopause. I am also hearing about, you know, corporations that are incorporating menopausal conversations for their workers because it's such an important conversation to have.
And I love that. That was literally unfathomable. And it's mostly happening in the UK, but hopefully companies in the US will follow suit and say, these are workers in their prime. They have a huge amount of wisdom and knowledge base and value to share. Let's figure out a way to keep them. I mean, I believe the statistic is 20% of the US workforce is in menopause. That is not insignificant. So really excited to speak to Sally and Michelle, who have approached it from a certain perspective with Womaness.
I'm excited to speak to them as well. And the most exciting thing is that they are not approaching one problem at a time. They are just literally basketing it all together and saying, we are going to help menopausal women with all of the symptoms that they might be facing.
Which is really such an important part of the conversation because it isn't one thing, it's lots of things.
Welcome to the Business of the V. Hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Alyssa Dweck.
And I'm Rachel Braun-Sherrill. Each week, we bring you the most fascinating investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, academics, and healthcare practitioners who are making things happen in women's sexual and reproductive health.
If you are a woman, know a woman, have a business, or care about your V health and wellness, fasten your seatbelts and listen in to another informative and inspiring episode.
We are so excited to have our guests today, Michelle Jacobs and Sally Mueller, who are the co-founders of Womaness. We can't wait to hear about how you ladies got here. One of the things that strikes us is so many of our entrepreneurs that we speak to in this space had a very circuitous route to get here. But it seems like you guys brought the skills right in from the work you were doing in brand strategy. So tell us a little bit about your journey to the creation of Womaness.
Yeah, I would say it's not circuitous. I can't even say the word at this hour of the night after a glass of wine. I would say it's zigzag. Like we had more of a zigzag track to get here. A zigzag up, which is good. But Michelle and I have known each other for almost 20 years. And we met when Michelle was at Time Inc. building Real Simple into a very successful product line. So obviously Real Simple was a very successful magazine and lifestyle media brand. And her role was to really lead the effort to build it into a successful product line. And Target was one of her retail clients. So I was at Target as an executive and someone thought it would be a good idea for us to meet, which it was, and we stayed friends ever since. So, I mean, Michelle, if you want to take over, but it's been a great love affair between the two of us. And we've never worked inside the same company together. We've worked on some projects together until Womaness, and all of our different experiences really led to this. So I'll let Michelle.
It's so funny that you talk about Target, because I just have to say the day I felt oldest in my business career is I was speaking to a young entrepreneur and I said, what was more exciting than when you got to Target headquarters and there's a statue of Mary Tyler Moore in the front throwing her hat up, and they said, who's Mary Tyler Moore?
Yeah, exactly. Well, she's like the godmother of Minneapolis. So
and working women everywhere.
I know, she's so great.
So Michelle, I go ahead.
I was just going to say that, both Sally and I spent our careers building brands for, women's lifestyle brands, whether it was Real Simple. I also worked on Cooking Light. I worked for Joy Mangano, who was a big brand on HSN as well.
And a movie about her.
Yes, and the movie was about her. Sally came up through Target, then worked at Click Media, where she helped build out the product line for Who What Wear, and Versed, which is a clean skincare brand, and many other brands associated with women. So it really made sense when we came together to create Womaness. Because we were having an authentic, serious issue ourselves, we had the skills to bring in and say, okay, we can start this and we know how to build this. So we took like everything we had learned from our whole career and brought it to this product and this brand to launch it. And I think, as Sally said, it was sort of like all of our experiences got us to today.
So I was reading about, Sally, you had your moment when you went to the doctor. Describe that, because it sounds like that was your aha moment to
Yes.
really leap into the establishment of Womaness.
Yeah, I knew I was in menopause, but I didn't know what symptoms I was experiencing were directly related to menopause. So it was, Dr. Dweck knows too, because we've had conversations in the past, but it was, vaginal dryness and all of the things that go along with that, painful sex and low libido. And those were, I would say, the biggest issues. I had some, night sweats obviously, and had trouble sleeping, but overall it was, it was manageable, but I knew that I needed to seek out some medical advice. So I signed up for a 2-day physical at the Mayo Clinic. And, just top to bottom. And I found myself in a really interesting conversation with a female doctor in the Women's Health Center. And she was super reassuring about, what I was experiencing was directly related to menopause and I wasn't alone. She sees patients all day long with very similar issues, and recommended that I try some products that would be available on Amazon. And so I did, go home that night and check out the products. And I remember gasping and saying to my husband, I'm never going to buy any of these products. I mean, the names of the product were pretty scary. You could definitely tell men had designed and created these products many years ago. The packaging seemed outdated. And I just knew, looking at the formulations, that they weren't necessarily made with clean ingredients. And that was really my aha moment of thinking, why am I not disrupting this space? This has got to be a huge opportunity. I had no idea that, 50 million women were going through menopause just in the US at that point. But afterwards, when I really started to think this could be my next career move, I started to do the research. And then Michelle and I met up in New York very soon after that. And we were just chatting about this idea, and she was getting more and more excited about it. And really felt like there was this turning point that was happening with women, that they were feeling, so many of her friends and her sister's friends just felt like it was time to do something for themselves. They didn't have to prove themselves anymore. They were leaving their corporate jobs to find something, start something that they wanted to always do. And they felt very energized and creative. And really, we took that insight and just that kind of, life lesson, and together with my own experience, to create Womaness. I mean, it really all came together. And what we really stand for is, products, but also education and inspiration. And we're here to modernize menopause. And what we like to say is spark menopositivity, which is, all about looking at this through a more positive lens. And women can do that if they feel like they're empowered and they're educated and they're surrounded by a support system, whether it's someone like Dr. Dweck or a friend like you, Rachel. It's really, women need that support.
I have to chime in here on so many levels. My mind is racing with so many excellent thoughts because you've really inspired me. So I have to say, first of all, I love that you are framing menopause in a positive light. There is no reason for this to be a Debbie Downer, horrible situation. Granted, many women do feel very uncomfortable. Some people are put into an abrupt menopause, but for the most part, there's a lot of positivity that goes on. Freedom from having to use contraception, freedom from menstruating and all those menstruating products, a sense of wisdom and confidence that comes along with the age of menopausal women. But I think what's really resonating with me is that, there are some articles that will cite 34 symptoms of menopause or 37 symptoms of menopause. And what is so shocking is that you guys literally just said, we're going to make 10 products for 10 symptoms of menopause. And that is unbelievable. So can you talk a little about that? Most of us just try to hit a hot flash or libido or maybe dryness, but you just said, I'm going to do it all.
Well, I mean, that really came from, we started doing focus groups early on, and we said, let's figure out what is most important to women. And we literally heard every time we had a focus group, it was like, I have vaginal dryness, I have sexual issues, my skin, I hate what my hands look like, my hair's falling out, I've gained 20 pounds. Like, there was not one thing. And we just, like, what we learned is that kind of what you said, like, menopause is different for every woman. So what are the things that we could tackle? One of our pillars is usefulness. Also, we want to make sure we're putting something out in the world that is useful for women. So we really decided we have to have as many products as we can pull together that solves problems for women. And we say we're like the first line of defense. We want to be the brand she finds when she's like, I don't know what to do. And like, I'm at my local retailer, where's the menopause section? We want to be the brand she finds and goes to first. And then when she finds out we have great products, of course, and trusts us, she'll also come to us for information, education, advocacy, all the other things that she's also looking for. What questions she should ask her doctor? What is our point of view on HRT? All the other stuff that you might not know about. But that's why, a lot of people, investors in particular, said early on, launch with one product, start with one. And we were like, that's not the playbook that we're going by, because we're actually trying to solve a problem. We're not just trying to have a one product DTC business. We really were like, we're trying to do something here.
And it's also how menopause affects her.
Yeah,
it's not just one thing. It's
not.
Depending on what you read, 34, 37 symptoms. And even though when you're having a hot flash, there's a singular focus, there are lots of aspects of her life that are affected. So when you went to develop the products and, make claims, how did you go about that? What kind of medical support or clinical support do you have behind those claims?
We're really in three main categories. We're in skincare, supplements, and sexual wellness. That's sort of how we think about it in our head. And we got really lucky. We spent a lot of time finding experts early on, whether it was experts in skincare and really understanding what happens to women in menopause. We call it pro-aging. What is going on when that loss of estrogen happens, and what are the best ingredients we could put into our products for that specific issue. In supplements, we also said, where's the clinical data? We don't want to just read about black cohosh and we'll throw it into the supplement. We wanted to know what is the best clinical data out there, who's using it, where can we pull this together? So we had an amazing formulator that we worked with early on that gave us great advice. And in sexual wellness, we talked to gynecologists, got feedback. We knew sort of where we wanted to go, but we really needed a gynecologist to look at our ingredients and make sure we were doing clean ingredients, that we were doing making the right decisions on whether we're using water-based, silicone-based, all those decisions that went into what our initial product line was. We got really lucky that we had some great partners early on that helped us, what we think, formulate the best product we can put out there.
Alyssa, I want to ask you, you obviously were trained in Western medicine, and I know that with your extra training, you've done a lot around nutrition and sex therapy. How do you counsel patients on this combination, if you will, of Western and Eastern medicine and lifestyle changes?
I find that every individual comes to the situation with kind of, number one, a different perspective, but different medical backgrounds so that there are some things that they can tolerate and some things that are absolutely contraindicated for them. I also find that people have different value systems when it comes to things like hormones. You know, there's definitely like a pro hormone camp and the I'm never taking a hormone camp, or I can't take a hormone. So there really are a lot of nuances to deciding how to go forward. So I always start very conservatively and then move to the aggressive. So, you know, usually it's lifestyle management first, diet and management, exercise, you know, stress reduction. So that's going to cross over with Eastern and Western practices. Then we talk about herbal supplements, because after all, that, you know, there's definitely a place for this, and some people are going to be on board and others not. And then we talk about, you know, pharmaceutical options, which of course not everybody is interested in, but some really, really need. So there is no one size fits all. And I think that that has to be accommodated for in the doctor's office. So here's today's hot flash. Per the National Sleep Foundation, approximately 61% of menopausal women have sleep problems as a result of menopause.
So normally, you know, one of the holy grails, you really arrive when you get to Target. And given your long history, Sally, how was that path? Was that easier? Did you have the same thrill now being on the other side? How were you able to create such a strong relationship and launch with such a large line?
Yeah, Target has been an unbelievable partner. And, I think everyone knows that they're so strong at servicing their guest and understanding the voids in their assortment that, consumers are looking for. And menopause was definitely this big void that they knew that they had to fill. And, very, very supportive. It was interesting. We actually first met with them right before the pandemic hit. And so, that was an interesting, just overall experience going through that whole spring and summer, kind of working through the details while we were all working on Zoom and really not knowing what was going to happen in the world. But what I think we all know what happened is that consumers, not only are, women are not only hungry for the solution, but I think consumers overall, men and women, have been very much focused on self-care and doubling down on that, especially during the pandemic. So, I think it's all about servicing the consumer and what Target calls their guest. And we were set up to do that. I think, product that was accessible, very affordable. We, given what Michelle just said, we're very focused on making sure that the product was efficacious and useful, and then it didn't really duplicate with anything else in their assortment. So that's what we really worked hard to do. And, it's getting a really good response. So
I would like to ask about the community because, like you said from the very beginning, women need women to speak about this issue. They want their symptoms to be normalized. They want empathy, they want sympathy, and they want girl power, if you will. So how are you managing community? I know there's a lot of education on your website. Do you have a community of women who speak to each other as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've invested a lot in community. We define community through all of our social media, through our email newsletter, which is super important to us, and our after party. It's called the After Party, which is our private Facebook group. And we have someone on our team, Ann Goebel, who's running that private Facebook group, who's in menopause as well. And she's just really a great resource for women, very funny, empathetic at the same time. And so, our community is building very rapidly. But we really feel like our community is also about education. And we've brought forth a lot of different experts that have been introduced to our community. And that's been going really well. So I think it's also really leaving our community with something that they haven't heard before, or something that's going to make them feel more empowered and more inspired. So a lot of it is just the constant interaction through social media, through, we have a whole series called Taking Questions where we interview different experts. And you can see that content, on our social as well as YouTube in some cases. Our YouTube channel captures a lot of the videos that we've taken. So
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously you have lots of experts, and I know the Mayo Clinic and representatives who are from there are well embedded in your website, which is, of course, a wonderful institution and so reputable. How did you manage things like with the FDA or clearance or safety studies? Because, it is the Wild West out there with, so many other menopause or just nutritional supplements in general. How did you manage that?
Just it's interesting that you asked that. I mean, we really made sure with, like I said, with all of our formulations that we had the clinical data behind it. But in terms of like registering with the FDA, we really did, our vaginal moisturizers are moisturizers, not lubricants. So we actually didn't go down that road quite yet. We were also like very early stage startup. So we had to just sort of make sure, we just knew where our business was going to lead us. And then from the supplement perspective, really we, like I said, once we knew that the clinical data was there, we just followed the regular rules of the FDA. There are definitely more like things you have to put on your packaging. I'm calling them warnings, but you know what I mean by that.
Yes.
And I mean, that was really how we managed that. I mean, luckily we're like a regular, an OTC brand, we're consumer packaged goods. We're not really trying to be more than that. We're not trying to be a medical brand. We're not trying to, we're not trying to be that. We really, like I said early on, we want to be this like first line of defense. We want to put the best products out there, cleanest ingredient deck we can pull together, but we're not trying to be more than we say we're trying to be. We're not doing scientific breakthroughs over here. We're giving you the best first, product to use.
And one of the things that I love about your business is you're very creative with your product names and your titles. So as a vagipreneur, I am particularly struck by this concept of menopositivity. Speaking of that and your own self-care, obviously, we all know now how difficult and exhausting and exhilarating it is to run a business. Have you had to change your self-care when you've gone from sort of the trappings of a corporate environment where there's somewhat of a safety net to going into the wild, wild west, as Alyssa would say, stepping into this space as entrepreneurs, which is quite different than the way you approached business before?
Yeah, I would say this is a very stressful project that Sally and I have taken on. Like the most stressful you can imagine, like we're giving our heart and soul. And I think we take care of each other. I'll say to Sally, like, you need a break, like you really need to take a break. And like, you've been working, like I know when she's been working all weekend, or I'm like, you got to take a break or get outside and take a walk. She knows when I'm like, also need, she'll tell me don't do back-to-back Zooms because I start to lose it and I have like my ADD will go off the charts. I think that we kind of take care of each other, but I also think like, and might be a terrible thing to say, but we are deep in it right now. And I would say self-care is hard. We probably don't do as good of a job as we could because I don't think I've ever worked so hard on anything in my whole life.
I love this story and I love what you're saying because, we've interviewed we've interviewed so many entrepreneurs on Business of the V. And I want to say, I'm a clinician and I'm in front facing people all day long. I have my colleagues near me. Of course, we have masks and shields and all of that. But what I have learned is that many entrepreneurs are really lonely. And they don't have the camaraderie that the two of you have where you can bounce ideas off each other all the time. And if one's feeling a little off, the other will maybe take over that role for a short period of time. So, kudos to you for having that type of working relationship. I mean, I think that's so important and probably will really lend to your staying power.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Dweck. I agree. I think it's so important. And, we built a really strong team of, right now, they just all happen to be women. We're not opposed to having men on the team because we think we have so many males, male investors and male consultants that have been helping us, and everyone is equally passionate. But it is really a sisterhood, and it's so important to support each other. And, we have a lot of women on our team that are younger and, are new moms, and it's hard. It's hard to be in a startup and building, something from scratch. And we like to say, we're creating a new category. We are trying to destigmatize menopause along with all of our peers in the industry. We're all trying to do this together. And we're also trying to reach a woman who's been largely ignored. And, it's not easy. And, it takes that support system. You really do need that support system. But I think when you can really, we try to focus on some sort of self-care. I know Michelle works out at a gym, and I try to at least get out and take a walk or go to a Pilates class. And then between the two of us, obviously we're consuming our own products. And there's some new products that I hope that we can create that I personally really need. There's so many different layers to this, and as you get further into menopause, your symptoms can also really evolve too. And that is better than anyone. But what I needed 8 years ago is so different than even what I need now. So,
well, I wanted to ask about that. The Lista, says, at least once a day, someone walks into her office and says, am I going crazy? And my answer would be, you might be, but it's not because you're experiencing menopause symptoms. You might just be going crazy from other things. But
Right.
in your community, how much of a theme? I mean, you started before the pandemic when mental health has become a much more frequent, thankfully, an important conversation. Have you seen that reflected in your community, in the kinds of products people want to see next? And is there something that's at all possible as a first line of defense for the mental health aspects?
I mean, I think there are certain themes we hear a lot, definitely that brain fog, like, I don't remember where I am. I don't remember what I'm doing. There's an anecdote. We say, like, you walk into the pantry and you're wondering, like, why am I in here? I think that is a major theme. I think the sexual wellness, all kinds of sexual wellness, whether it's having, painful sex to not wanting to have sex to all kinds of sexual wellness issues, I think is another big one. And sleep is another big theme. Besides all the, everybody has skin problems, skin things they can complain about all day. So, we were able to just launch a supplement related to sleep. It's called Let Me Sleep. That helps you fall asleep and stay asleep. But I think the mental health issue is there are certain things that I don't think we're going to solve with a pill. We always say, like, we're not going to solve weight gain with a pill. I'm probably not going to be able to help with your hair loss. And I think some of the mental health issues, some of it is, you're going through menopause and it will either pass as you get deeper in. There are a few things you could take, like ashwagandhas and some of our like there's some, I'm sure Dr. Dweck knows a lot about different Chinese medicines you can take. There are definitely things out there, but having the community and talking about it and normalizing it is part of the help also, and saying you're not alone, you're not the only one, and not making dumb jokes where you're like, you feel silly, but like supporting each other and saying, like, you're not the only one that feels that way. And I think that's what we can offer on things that we don't have a magic bullet for and we don't have a pill for. That's where the community helps. Whether it is weight gain, like, people chime in, here's what I'm doing, here's what I've learned, this is what I'm thinking about. And that's almost as helpful as, oh, here's a Let Me Sleep pill, go try it, and hopefully you'll sleep better tonight. So I think it's kind of, a mixture of things, but certain themes, definitely come up again and again.
Yeah, well, I think you have completely reiterated that there is a war chest of solutions for the symptoms of menopause, however many there actually are. And lifestyle changes mean a lot. So you're absolutely right. What is coming down the pike other than your brand new sleep supplement, which sounds very relaxing? What's coming down the pipe for Womaness?
Yeah, so sleep just launched, we were thrilled about. We have a retinol product that's coming out the end of February. It's actually going to be available at Target and on our own website. It's called Plump It Up. And what's really interesting about what we learned from women is that retinol often like makes their skin very dry and red. They're very sensitive. So we actually put the retinol in an applicator, so you can like spot treat certain areas, and you're not just like going like this all over your face. I mean, you could put it all over your face, but a lot of women say like, I just want to use it up here, but I don't want it touching over here. So we tried to think about how you're going to use the retinol and make it an applicator that is a little easier to spot treat. It also feels really good because it has a massaging roller ball, so it feels great on your skin. And then in a few months, we have an amazing product, which we're super excited about. It's another vaginal moisturizer called Cocoa Bliss, and it is a coconut-based vaginal moisturizer. We heard from so many women and doctors we spoke to that women were using coconut oil on their own as a lubricant. So we looked at a clean way to bring this to market. It feels amazing. It smells amazing. We're really excited about that. And that's going to be later on this year. So those are some of the big things happening in the first part of the year.
Wow. Awesome.
We just want to say, keep it going. It's so exciting. You guys literally exploded onto the menopause scene and have really just ingrained yourself in the conversation. And from my perspective, one of the biggest benefits of brands like yours is that we are having conversations about menopause and that people aren't going through it alone. So we'll continue to cheer you on and look forward to seeing your new products. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh,
Thank you,
so much.
Rachel and Dr.
Great.
Dweck.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast at businessofthev.com for the latest trends and trendsetters in women's health and business.